This is Hello Chaos. Thank you for joining us. This is a podcast where we talk about the ups and downs, the highlights and the low points of entrepreneurship, and hopefully learn some lessons that every entrepreneur or aspiring entrepreneur can take on your journey. I am Jennifer Oladipo, aka Jeno.
And I'm Jennifer Sutton, aka Just Jen. I have no fun nickname. I need to have one.
We can work on it.
Or
we can
just the Jens.
If our guests, we could just be the Jens, and we'll try to answer in unison.
And today we're actually so excited to have these two guys on the show. We've got Zach Eikenberry. I want to make sure I did pronounce that right. Eikenberry.
Correct.
And Adam Newberry, and they're coming at us from
No.
Adam
Anderson.
We're gonna have to do this all over.
No, we'll just cut that out.
Why did I say Newberry?
I don't know.
I come across as a Newberry. I identify as Newberry. We can roll with it.
Why did I do that? So sorry.
We're happy to have with us.
We're happy to have Zach Eikenberry and Adam Anderson with us, and they're coming at us from
Hook Security.
Oh.
And yes, and Hook Security is doing some very interesting things. Just the premise of the business.
Just love
with
the mug.
Cybersecurity training, coming at it from a really different angle. Adam is woman-owned. Hook is not. Adam is. So just keep that in mind. And we are so excited to hear about the business journey and what's going on with you guys. So first, if you could just start with a little bit to make sure that I was kind of explaining well what you all do, because I know it's a lot deeper than that.
You guys both just...
Yes.
And Adam.
Go ahead. Hey, Zach, why don't you take lead, Zach? Because you're the CEO of the company. I'm just chair of the board. I show up for the parties.
Oh, there you go.
That's fair. Yeah, so Hook Security is a new type of security training company. We train end users, that is non-technical people, to recognize when they're being manipulated via their technology.
Like me.
So, yeah. So we do a little bit of everything. We pride ourselves in coming up with the equivalent of SNL skits every week to train people in a humorous, disarming, non-punitive way to recognize things like phishing emails, fake emails. They're called smishing, but fake text messages. And then any other way you can be manipulated on your computer or your device. We train to those ends, and that's what we do every day. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love that you actually make it fun.
Yeah.
And I think, you all talk about the people are not the problem, because most people will be like, what's your biggest threat? What's your biggest risk? And it's like, humans. And you're really like the first I've ever seen to say, no, humans are not your biggest risk, threat, problem.
Yeah.
Humans are the biggest asset, right? We build companies, and companies are filled with people. And if we don't have the right people who can't do what they're supposed to do, the companies all grind to a halt. So you can't just be one hand saying, "Oh, people, I'm a cyber nerd, and the dumb humans keep clicking on things." I'm like, dude, that's change your attitude, buddy. We're sending you to HR.
Yeah. So do you guys work with a lot of IT departments, I'm assuming, within companies? Yes. Is that how you get in?
Yeah, actually, most of our clients are our partners, which are managed service providers. So your outsourced IT, those are the folks we work with, and they come into businesses like Hello Chaos, and that's how we provide training through your managed service provider.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Yeah, but it is working with a lot of IT people, and the stereotypes in 2022 for IT people haven't changed much since 2012.
Yeah. No. So I don't know if we'll keep, but I'm going to tell you a story. So my son is a freshman at Indiana University getting his degree in information systems. He's in a 3-year, fast track program to get his undergraduate and his MIS in 3 years. And their onboarding for this program, the professors, their deans kind of came in and said, we're trying to change the the face of what the IT or the perception of what an IT person is. And they don't want their graduates from IU to have the reputation of being the guy that's down in the basement that, doesn't know how to speak to other humans. And so they have required like social outings, different peer-to-peer kind of programs. So it's not only just their classwork, but it's like a fraternity that's organization on top that's layered on top of these classes. But that's what they were like, we know, like we get the reputation of what's out there, and we're trying to change that as a university. And your students and your children, they're going to whine to you to go, well, I don't want to go to this, dinner and dress up. They're like, we require them to leave the dorm at least a few hours, at night, because they're like, we've seen where kids will just like 24 hours, 40, never leave in front of the computer.
Yeah.
And so
I love it.
And they're just hyper. And my son was that way all through. I mean, he's been that way since he was 9, of just like experimenting, but always being on the computer. We had to drag him and force him to play soccer and play football. And it's just funny, and it's just like, Mom, I'm so excited. Like, I'm the cool guy. Like, I played sports in high school. I
played sports ball, Mom.
I was like, I played sports. I'm like the cool guy in this, in this 150, group, this cohort. So it's funny to hear you say that, and I'm hoping that Indiana is not the only university that's probably recognizing the trend of IT.
Though it may sound like it, they are not a sponsor, but if you'd like to be IU, please, hello@orangewhip.com.
That's right. It is my alma mater and all. I am an alumni, so it was nice to have a kid go to, your alma mater.
So that's good. All right. So you all are kind of at the head of this wave of really just taking a different approach to technology and our relationships with it, because, I mean, we need to. There's no getting away from it anymore. Which is great, but we want to talk about you, actually.
Yeah.
And so, we want you to talk about you. And so, Zach, before we started recording, I asked you what was top of mind right now, and you mentioned a confluence, a soup, a tsunami of, I don't know, things. What's going on?
Yeah, that's right. Well, so Hook Security is 3 years old, and as we enter into our third cycle around the sun, or I guess fourth cycle, we are blown away by the amount of growth we're experiencing. So by our estimates, we're the fastest growing cybersecurity training company out there. In the fastest growing space within cybersecurity, companies are waking up to know that they need to train their employees better and differently. And on top of all that, you get to enjoy the fun of raising capital and looking at opportunities for mergers and acquisitions, because our space is just so hot, as it were. There's so much activity going on.
I like the way you said it before we started recording. Try again.
I mean, Adam, I was thinking something similar, but you're never in the same river twice.
I wrote it on a list here, and so I was trying to. I was like, I got to remember
bullet points, baby,
magic.
Bullet points.
So, question: I'm gonna work in the reverse order. You said looking at opportunities for M&A. Are they looking at you, or are you out there?
Are you being approached, or are you having to do the approaching?
No, we're all sniffing each other's butts.
Great.
So
there you go. Now you landed it. That's what we're waiting for. That's a CEO.
Well, no, there's a lot of activity though. There's so much going on.
So you're constantly, because we're in that merging space of technology and people. Mm-hmm. So because talent is so, I'm going to say scarce, restricted right now, and you have an interesting labor market, you're constantly looking at, rather than hiring piece by piece, do you go ahead and acquire or merge with another company who already has the bench of talent? So you're doing that on one side. And on the other, you have the market opportunity where there's just so many transactions happening every day. The question is, what is the upside and potential by bringing a couple companies together, creating a better, more compelling offering, and getting to the head? So that is, That's a fancy way of saying growing revenue. And so
Yeah.
you're constantly in this conversation and talk. And in our particular sub niche of the industry, which is working with managed service providers, there's an additional level of chaos in that several of the big players are acquiring each other. And that has a downhill effect on all the things we're seeing, where now companies have to position to compete with a larger entity, while at the same time, a number of the larger entity's clients will exit at that acquisition. And now the world is being reshuffled. And so that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, there was just a big one last week. Was it Kaseya?
Yep, Kaseya acquiring Datto.
Datto, yeah. So as a 3-year-old company, and you're looking at what's going on in this space, can you talk a little bit about, like, what are the conversations you're having? You don't have to talk, details and process. I mean, we don't need to know whose butts you're sniffing, but just when you're trying to figure out, like, what is right for you and what's the way forward,
right?
Especially when you
what's
do
your
have a
decision-making criteria?
Yeah,
now?
How do you have these conversations, and how do you answer to your board?
Well, that's a whole other question. Poorly. Thank you, Adam. So the first question you have to ask yourself, is this strategic or is this a distraction? Right? And so you process through those stages, and you have to part of the way to expedite is to have frank and open conversations much quicker. And it seems risky because you're talking with people who are potential competitors. Right? And say, this is what we're up to. Here's our story. Here's what we think we're worth, our valuation. Here's our growth. Whatever metrics make sense, you got to be upfront about it in order to short circuit the conversation so that you can determine distraction or strategic. Distraction, strategic. And frankly, most things at our stage are a distraction. And so we have to
stay. Why is that? What makes it a distraction?
So we have limited resources. We're a 10-person company right now. We're growing. We're looking to grow by about 50% and to be at about 30 people by the end of the year. Wow. Even so, the current team only has so many hours in a day that they can contribute to something. And so we are currently overwhelmed with the amount of interest and leads and trying to keep up in our space with demos. And so we're constantly doing that. And to take my team off of those activities and to have them go and do due diligence or interview or talk about cultural fit with another company, it has to be the right company at the right time to actually do that. And so that's where you get this distraction.
The way we keep score, and we're playing we're going to go raise funds game, is it's all on, hey, what's your revenue at? So anything that might slow down the velocity or the pace of revenue growth is going to damage our ability to raise money in a couple of months. So, when Zach and I are talking, everything he says is about, okay, can I keep the velocity going? Will this not distract our salespeople? Will this not distract our internal people? And at the end of this, are we a better company that is positioned better in the market? Because we're still going to be in that fundraising game. So, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a lot of what you are considering with this stuff is, what are the optics to investors? What are the optics to the market? And am I making something that people are going to want to put more money in after I'm done?
Yeah, that's right. There comes a point where the bets in your space have been made by venture capital, right? Venture capital comes in and picks the 2, 3, 4 horses that are going to run in your space. And then everybody else has to compete with those horses where, so right now we're in a state of wild west in the security. So there's still room for people to pick and bet on horses, to make strategic investments as a venture capitalist and say, allocate money to those founders there. Let's go. In the next 3-4 years, that window will close and it'll be a lot more difficult for companies entering in the space because the VC will immediately ask them, well, how are you competing against Hook Security? They have a war chest. They have, 10 years ahead of you. How are you going to overtake Hook Security because they received the funding investment? So that's the race we're in right now, is to make sure that we hit, because the timing's right, that we hit and strategically raise and bring in the right type of capital as well as the right type of talent to go forward on this. our industry as a whole is going from about $2 billion in 2021 total spend, estimates anywhere from 10 to 15 billion by 2027.
Wow.
And so it's
just
the growth rate is enormous, and it's not even something you can comprehend. It's hard to figure out what a billion actually is in your head, and then to extrapolate that multiple times over.
So, what got you into this space? Was this was this both you and Adam's background for IT
no.
and cybersecurity? What?
Yeah, so it's my background. So I sold a cybersecurity company. It was a professional services company. I didn't love my exit because professional services companies are usually 3 times EBITDA on your exit. And I was like, yay, I've got 7 figures. Isn't that wonderful? And then I was very sad. And so I wanted to build another company, and that company had to check a couple boxes. One, it had to be infinitely scalable, meaning we had to do some kind of a SaaS product. It had to solve a simple problem that actually would impact cybersecurity. I believe we're losing the cyber arms race, and it's because we do not treat people the way they're supposed to. So I wanted to do something like that. And then the last part is I want an infinite sales team. And so we experimented with, can we sell through other people? Can we build a software as a service that trains humans? And the answer was yes, yes, yes. And then I'm like, oh man, this CEO stuff is hard. I need an adult. I need a real adult. And what I didn't need was a person who didn't understand how to teach people. And so I've been hanging out with Zach for years. Again, I lost a bet. It's fine. It's worked out. It's okay. And I went over to him, and he had just finished successfully launching 2 high schools and a middle school. And he's like this thought leader in education. And I can see him getting frustrated where he knows what needs to happen in education, and it wasn't happening. And so I said, hey, can you come and look at what I'm playing with and give me your thoughts? And Zach, do you remember what you told me?
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember sitting on the front porch at Adam's house, and he was telling me about the security training industry, and I remember remarking to him, it sounds like we took all the bad ideas from public education and put it into corporate training. And Adam said,
Yep.
that's exactly what we did. And so, I said,
you were
all right,
like,
let's do some research.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what we need in cybersecurity is more CEOs that are not Uber nerds. The answer isn't bits and bytes and how do we build better software and how do we lock it down. The answer to cybersecurity in the future is how well do we understand humans? How do we educate and equip them? And what you need to win in cybersecurity is world-class educators. So Zach was the absolute best choice I could find. I didn't look hard, but he was there.
It sounds like you didn't look past
He came on your porch.
Yeah. He was just walking by. He was walking by. I was like, hey, you, come here. You like bourbon? You want to talk about business?
Yeah. Let's go ride an e-bike up and down.
Yeah. You jog. I'll ride the e-bike. This is our banter. I actually think the world of Zach, but I think that sometimes it's just fun to banter with him. I realize I'm being overly derogatory, and I'm going to change my tune.
No, you're fine. He's smiling, and we can see that it's all.
So you guys have been together now 3 years, or did Zach come on
Hook?
Within Hook? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Oh, we've known each other for all the way back to 2011. Adam and I, yeah. I looked it up the other day, Adam. You can look it up yourself. The first email we exchanged with each other after.
I remember I hired Zach as a consultant because I was thinking about getting into government contracting, and Zach's really good at figuring out all that. And I was like, so I paid him $2,500 to do a feasibility study, and he rolled in. Maybe it was $5,000. I don't remember. He rolls in, and he's about to present. I'm getting excited about this new line of business we're about to build. And he's like, "You guys are not going to succeed. You do not. You shouldn't do this. You're very, very bad. And my suggestion is to stick with what you're good at, which is like anything but government contracting." I was like, "You just saved me a lot of money, buddy. That's the best $5,000 I ever spent. High five. All right."
You know
That's
what?
a true story.
And then fast forward, come on my porch. I got another thing to pitch for you. And
so you trusted him at that point then, because he'd already.
That's right.
Yeah.
Integrity is everything. And I mean, in this business world, we bump into so many people in networking events, and we if you're an extrovert like me, I fall in love with you immediately. We're best friends. But what I've had to learn as a survival instinct is things should go slow. You should absolutely be a good human being. You should totally show up with a servant attitude. How can I help people? But before bringing them into things that are super important, like a business or a project, it really does just take time. You cannot fast forward. Well, actually, I did come up with a way to fast forward. I'd say it takes about 3 years of networking with a person to build a relationship, or you go do 3 days of intense adrenaline-based activities like flying planes or shooting guns from helicopters or skydiving, things like that.
What?
So I love taking entrepreneurs and giving them adrenaline experiences because we just went to Vegas. We're shooting we're flying stunt planes and playing laser tag. So there's 3 of us in the air, and you're somebody's wingman. And when the guy's coming in and you shoot the other one down and protect him, you're best friends for life. So it's how do you craft those experiences? But Zach and I didn't have those kind of experience available to us. And so we had nothing but Ink and Ivy's bar to sit and stare at each other on one day at lunch. So sitting at bars takes a lot longer to build a relationship than let's go race supercars or junk trucks over things, Anyway.
So are you also trying to see how people do under pressure at that point? Because that's what I thought you were going to say.
Well, you do. So I run CEO mastermind groups, and the thing we do before we let you into a group is we need to see if you're going to be toxic to the group. And the way we do that is we test you in events. And if after 3-4 days of hanging out with you in Vegas, nobody can stand you, you're not getting an invite. And so, wow. I can see that being great for future executive teams. I mean, it's not a matter how do you do under pressure. It's how do you do when you let your defenses down and you become comfortable and you're
vulnerable,
sharing an experience. Yeah. And it takes months and months and months and months and months to have employees or potential business partners, let their vulnerability show. And we like to accelerate the heck out of that, making you throw up in a bag while you're pulling 7 Gs in a stunt plane.
So as you're
which 50% of us did. It's great to have a GoPro right in front of you and you got your bag. You're like, oh, hang on.
So is this also the recruitment process, Zach? Is this how it kind of, as you're in your hyper growth mode, what potential employees have to look forward to?
Yeah, that's right.
Like we're going to do a 4-day abuse tour.
No, but seriously, I mean, you're trying to grow really fast and you've got all these other pressures. Yeah. So how are you making those decisions about
who's the right people?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great question. We're ramping up into it. And of course, you have your processes. You're looking for character fit, cultural fit, competency fit. You've got your outline for what that looks like. One of the things that I think is pretty fascinating right now that we're seeing more and more of, which is real enjoyable, is people showing up with curiosity and questions in the interview process themselves. I'm experiencing a greater amount of self-advocacy and of self-awareness talking with candidates. And so, but to your point to tie with Adam, when it comes to executive leadership in our organization and anybody that we're looking at taking on a disproportionate amount of responsibility, absolutely, I have them talk with Adam. We were engaged in how do we get them executive coaches out of the gate. So right now on our team of 10, I think 8 people are regularly engaged in executive coaching. And we are focused. We spend a lot of time focusing on how do you get results through other people. Adam's, one of his superpowers is identifying people who already have that talent and then bringing it out. So.
He's like, go on, honey. Tell me more. Tell me more.
So, Zach, you were talking about superpowers with Adam. Keep going, buddy. Well, I mean, the interesting thing is that.
Well, I was just going to say, what you're saying makes sense based on what you're actually doing, right? You're talking about investing in people. How do you maximize them? How do you, help them be their best in your environment? So.
Yeah, that's right.
And it really plugs into our view on the role of humans and humanity, right? We are pro humanity. We like what we're doing. We understand there's a lot of conflict and there's a lot of trials and there's, but we're bullish. We think that we're heading in the right direction. We think we can bet on humans. That's why we build companies with humans in it. That's why we think we should train humans. That's why we are excited about this. And we've done a lot of companies in the past, and this is the first time that I've seen Zach get it right. That's not what I meant to say. What I meant to say, Zach get the culture building right. It's like he's finally been able to do exactly what he's been trying to do in various different companies. And I'm super excited to just show up. And it's one of the first times where I felt like the company is leading itself rather than it betting on a world-class entrepreneur. And Zach's amazing, but every single person has a maximum capacity of what they can do. And if we don't immediately begin to nurture the capacity of the team, we're going to cap ourselves. And so Zach's been very self-aware this entire journey, which is like, my job is to build teams where I am now obsolete. And that's a brave thing to say. That's a brave stance to take, especially when you take most entrepreneurs have so much of their identity wrapped up in the company. And the idea at even in year 3, you're already trying to make yourself obsolete because that's the best thing for the company. Kudos. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. How did you formulate that? I mean, Adam said that you kind of always wanted to have this culture development from the start, but did you sit down and go, okay, this is my vision? Like, how did that get formulated between the two of you to get on the same page?
Well, it wasn't actually very hard to answer your second question first. Adam and I have a very similar worldview, and Adam is always showing up to new environments with curiosity. So he's a very easy person to engage with, like, hey, I think we should do something this way. And he's like, okay, let's do it. So one of the things, I guess, in the entrepreneurial journey and the career that was an epiphany to me was I spent a lot of times with my first companies defining our culture and what the company is by what we're not going to do. Like, I would have a bad experience, or I would see another company and I'd say, like, we're never going to do it that way. We're never going to treat people like that. We're never going to build this thing. We're never going to. And so trying to build something out of a negative void where you're constantly having to measure yourself against, well, at least at our company, we don't do it that way. Like, it is incredibly toxic for a number of reasons, right? The false pride that you get as a leader by having a company that doesn't do it this way. You end up with really toxic metaphors, like we're a family here, right?
Yeah, that one.
You end up manipulating yourself and other people because you're not actually building a positive culture. You're not saying what we want to do, and you're not actually defining it with any sort of clarity and vision to your team. And so one of my highly recommended books that we've leveraged a couple times now at Hook Security is 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Oh.
And what's to tie it to the work we're doing, to create environments that are psychologically safe for people, in that they trust each other, they can have conflict. Conflict is something that's very healthy, and it brings about you can expedite and shortcut. You have commitments to each other, you have accountability and results, and it starts to really feel like a great place to be yourself. And once you're able to be yourself, now you can start to recognize what we work on as psychological security. Out of safety, you can provide security where people can start recognizing when they're being manipulated, when something is not in their best interest, because they're able to, out of the culture, begin to identify things that might not be, authentic. And so that might be an academic way to say, at the end of the day, building that team culture, one that is focused on getting results, down to accountability, down to commitments, down to conflict, down to trust, has been incredibly helpful for us. And, if you want to ask about our company or our culture, I recommend you ask our team if you ever want to ask.
Well,
they're not here, Zach. We can't talk to them right now. They're not here.
Yes, no, that's actually, I told you we had a full day. We're interviewing everyone else, all the other 9 people on your team, and we'll just, so hopefully
They're on afterwards.
Shit you've got going on here. But what you've got, this does make me curious though. Like, how do you check each other on things? Because it's really easy. Again, like in early days with a lot going on.
As you're growing, you got to you're kind of developing that vision, but also how do you on board? And then how are you self-reflecting and checking?
Yeah, and making sure that people really are psychologically safe and really do feel like, they can everything's coming out of that space. They're not being manipulated. They're not being, overrun.
Yeah. So at some of the basic premises that you have to show up when you're onboarding, building a team, what have you, you do have to treat everybody as an individual. And you have to spend a lot of time listening and watching how they behave and how they come in. So like we'll have cultural things like a daily huddle on our team. But how do people show up to that? What do they share when they're there? How vulnerable are they being? Are they comfortable sharing a threat, as it were, something that is not going right? Are they comfortable, or they continue to repeat very safe phrases like, well, today I'm doing the same thing as yesterday. I'm going to be working on this, this, and this, and I hope you all have a great day. And you're like, oh, this person's trying to find safety in being unseen when they show up. And so understanding that at an individual level is incredibly helpful. But I think what most people, and this is if you've read or listened to any of like Brene Brown's work, clarity is kindness. And the ability to show up, ask questions. Fundamentally, my job is to ask questions. I don't show up and tell people things. But showing up, asking questions, and asking pointed questions, not why. Why questions, not helpful for a culture. What and how, and then pulling out what does it mean to be direct and get to the root of something that somebody is could actually be wrestling with. And by the way, these are very interesting psychological concepts. Like,
yeah, definitely.
There's 2 real big fears when it comes to small teams and startups. The first is if I show up and I bring all my ideas and I bring all my energy, then I'll be too much for the team and the team will reject me, right? Or the other fear is I won't be enough, right? I'll show up, I'll bring all my ideas, etc. Everybody else is smarter than me. Everybody else is better and more talented than me, and I won't be enough and the team will reject me. And so you're constantly inviting people to share that out and experience the fact that the team does trust them, that they're not too much or too little. They're actually what the team wants. And when you can get to those places, you start building momentum in your culture because you have real trust. And the trust is not, I trust you because you'll do it the way that I would do it. I trust you because we're aiming at the same thing and I know you're trying your best. And therefore, I can have any candid conversation I want with you because we both trust each other.
So how is that being played out in these daily huddles? Are you facilitating or are you just really observing and then you have one-on-ones to kind of go, hey, I noticed you don't want to be unseen, or do you do exercises like team exercises to kind of help uncover some of that?
What I've observed Zach doing, and because I feel like I haven't been able to talk long enough because he is talking, so I want to hear my voice. So rather than tell the guy who's actually doing the work, tell you what he's doing, I'm going to tell you what I see him doing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I roll in and he's got these yeah. So I roll in and he's got all these people and they're going through a chapter of it, and he sets time aside for them to get good at the craft of being unokay being okay, or okay being unokay, and they're really having these conversations. And then the huddle's there, and it's usually very, very quick, and I don't see a lot of that interaction happening on the huddle. But I'll tell you the end result of what he's done is, even though he's done the one-on-ones and over time he's nurtured, we now see the employees doing this for each other. So the punchline is this: Zach doesn't have to be in the room to have this kind of interaction happening through the employees, because he did the heavy lifting up front to set expectations, to show them what was okay, to begin to really lay that culture down. And now the culture is self-propagating, which is something that absolutely has to happen, because he's going to be doubling in size. He's got to have to go from 10, 15 to 30 employees. And there's no way he's going to be able to do 30 one-on-ones. There's no way he's going to be able to do all of that. And so the thing I might be most proud about what we have done, what he has done, is creating a culture that we can invite new people in, and the culture and the people that are existing there will help set the tone for new people with minimum contact with the CEO.
Right. So you're kind of hiring in, you're able to add your lieutenants in and your second and third layers really easily. That's fantastic.
So Zach, how much?
Well,
do you
easily
share?
might be a overstatement, but yeah.
So how do you find it as the person who is supposed to be at the helm and have, if not all the answers, most of the answers, and make people feel secure about what they're showing up to do every day, especially at times like this? I mean, how is that for you to share your whys and not whys, your what's in your hows and your what you're going through? I mean, for a lot of our audience is going to be founders and CEOs just like you, and that's not easy. I've seen situations where it's like, okay, everybody, we're going to learn each other, but then the owner is not giving anything up.
Right, or they're wearing so many hats. It's like, where do you focus your time?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I think are interesting to tease out. The thing that I'll point out is I actually don't know all the answers at all, right? Like I can get into the non-obvious reasons for that. But what I do is I do hold the why, right? I'm the CEO. I hold the why. And so I will strategically share that out in a form of a question. Like, so the why of Hook Security is so that everyone everywhere can recognize and respond to manipulation by technology, sorry. And so somebody will be going through something. I'll be like, man, how does that help us get to everyone? Or how does that help us get everywhere? Or do you think that actually if that is effectively training people to recognize? So I will ask questions based on our why statement all the time. And I'll give another trick, as it were. I don't call. So I call people on my team. I do not trade emails with them. I do not just Slack them unless it's just transactional information. By the way, there's communication and information systems, and they're not the same thing in an organization, but we won't go there. I call people
just
up.
to clarify for the audience, it's because your team is distributed, is what you're saying. Every people are in different states.
Yeah, I mean they see each other around. Yeah, but I'm down in Florida. Teams in Greenville, South Carolina. We have somebody in Chicago. We're growing around the country, around the world. So I pick up the phone. My first question is not, how are you or how are you doing? Even if I hear an issue, like I hear an issue on the huddle or I know somebody's having a bad day or something, like I don't ask how are you, right? Because it actually makes people not feel seen, because it's immediately just pleasantries, etc. being exchanged. I'll say, hey, can I talk to you about something? Or are you in a place where I can ask you some questions? And immediately people will they'll sit up and they'll be like, oh, okay, like I'll lean in. And I've been known before to say, what's the question that I should ask you right now? And, or what's the one thing you don't want to talk about?
And do they tell you?
Yeah.
If they trust me after time, they'll tell me. Like, listen, I don't want to talk about this too much, but I'm having a lot of problems at home and I'm having a lot of trouble making appointments by 10 a.m. because I have to deal with the kids and blah, blah, blah. Okay. What do you think we should do about that? And then they'll tell you, well, I think, I should really do this, this, and this. All right. Who else should know about that on the team? And I'll just walk them through, and that will be my post-huddle phone call to keep things moving along. I don't know the answer to their lives. I don't, I don't understand all the things that are going on, but I can tell you on the books, we have a 4-day work week at Hook Security. And when we switch to 4 days, we don't allow any company meetings to be scheduled on Friday. Friday's your day to go to the dentist, get your oil changed, anything you want, what have you. Our productivity shot through the roof. And part of it is because of this culture. Like, if I call, I can call anybody at 7 p.m. and it's not an interruption to them, right? They'll be like, oh man, Zach's calling me at 7. What is it? And I'll always get somebody to pick it up. And that's because I highly respect who they are and what they're doing. And they will respond in kind by saying, okay, I'm going to answer this phone because we got a goal to hit. We got results to get at Hook Security. What can we do? So he's probably calling me for a reason. So the struggle. So what you're describing, Zach, is not something that comes intuitive to most founders, CEOs, business owners, or even senior executives. And yet it's super effective. And what I respect about Zach, not just his magnificent bone structure of his face, which of course it goes without saying, is the fact that he can hold all these different pillars of business where he understands that he has to switch gears and he has to be the present leader who can ask those kind of questions and hold that level of curiosity where in the back of his head, he's got cash burn on his mind and he knows he's got to do this pitch to get this VC and he's got to do there's all of these things that a startup founder has to do. And the reason we're winning is because he picked the culture and how he interacts with our employees as a priority. We all know it's important, but it is in his top priorities. It is right up there with what's my revenue like, is also how's the communication in the company going? How's psychological safety and security going in the company? So that is I love watching Zach work because it's watching a multi-time entrepreneur doing his craft really, really well.
Man, I have so many questions about that, and we have 0 time.
I was like,
unfortunately.
All right, see you guys next week. Yeah, we can.
That's right.
No, but you know what we
and
really
then we
should.
can talk, and we can talk more about me then, and less.
I was
about
actually going to say we need to hear what Zach really respects about Adam.
Yeah, I do want to hear.
That's a long list, guys. We're out of time.
So, like the interaction between the two. I love it.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you.
That's what
Yeah, Adam, he is the most recovered narcissist I've ever met. The best recovery path I've ever seen.
Another episode we need to have. My goodness.
The recovering narcissist episode.
You guys, thank you so much. This has been really great.
We will have to do a follow-up.
I was going to say,
definitely.
I feel like we need to do a end of year check-in or something and see how people are going, how people are doing.
Well, I've got a lot more questions.
Yeah, but thank you. This has been great. So anyway, Hook Security, look him up. We don't spend a lot of time talking about the details of the business here, but please check him out. And we'll put some of your recommendations, Zach, in the show notes for tools and resources that other entrepreneurs can use.
Absolutely. And you can listen to this podcast at your favorite podcast platform. We're everywhere. Everywhere. And you'll also be able to view it, not just listen to it, but you can watch it if you go to our city zines that are coming out around cities near you, launching in the 3 South Carolina markets first. So gblinnovates.com or chazinnovates.com or colainnovates.com. This podcast will be distributed within those innovative zines.
Yeah, so you can see the bone structure for yourself because folks,
right.
it is a sight to behold.
It is. They're so pretty.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.